Two widely accepted statements were confirmed on Tuesday night. Number one, Logan O'Hoppe is a superstar in the making. And number two, the Angels in 2024 are brutal. We'll talk about a close but another Halo loss on tonight's edition of the Locked On Angels Postcast.
You are Locked On Angels Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, Halo Nation. Hello, Halo hopefuls, and welcome to the latest edition of the Locked On Angels Postcast. Coming at you live, as always, on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel and after the fact, wherever you get the Locked On Angels podcast feed. As always, of course, I'm your host, Gavin Carlson. I spent 4 years as a credentialed journalist in the LA area, writing articles, conducting interviews, hosting podcasts, attending games in press boxes, courtside, traveling across the country. And of course, now I'm a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And your team is the Angels, and every day they seem to lose, despite a superstar in the making with another stellar performance, that being Logan O'Hoppe, not one, but 2 home runs, not 2, but 3 hits, all off of Max Scherzer. He does it in the field. He does it at the plate. He is the leader emotionally and physically of this team. But even in a superstar performance from O'Hoppe, the Angels fall short once again, losing another game, falling now 2 in a row to the Texas Rangers, falling to 37-54 thanks to a 5-4 loss. On tonight's show, we will talk about O'Hoppe. We will talk about some costly mistakes from Contreras and Luis Garcia. And also, I'll tell you, what should you look for when you watch Angels games? Because we know this team isn't competing for anything. What should you look for? I'll tell you that at the end of today's show. But first and foremost, shout out to everybody in here as always. Jeff saying he's at work, so he'll see us next week when the Angels have been swept. Jeff is always negative, but the problem is he's always right when he's negative. You can't blame him one bit. Also, shout out to Anaheim Angel in here as well. He says, Jeff, I feel you. On his way to work, he goes. So shout out to both of you, working hard, even late at night. You know, obviously, shout out to you for working hard, but also shout out to you for making me and the postcast a part of your nightly routine. And Daniel Barry in here as always as well. He says, yo, what up, Daniel? Good to see you as always. Before we jump into the show, shout out to today's sponsor, FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. And let's get started with this postcast. And despite a loss, despite a costly mistake from Luis Garcia, despite an outing from Roansy Contreras, we have to start with Logan O'Hoppe. This is not me being a homer. This is not me, making positive light out of a negative situation, another loss. This is the biggest story of the day for a team that is not competing. It's that our best player right now, our best player of the future, maybe even with Mike Trout on the roster, had a huge game, and that is Logan O'Hoppe. He wasted no time, literally wasted no time. Every single at-bat, a first pitch shot. Getting started in the bottom of the second, Logan O'Hoppe, the Angels already down 1-0. Against Max Scherzer, no worries. Scherzer throws a first pitch curveball, a tricky pitch, not a terrible pitch. Is it over the plate? Yes. It's somewhat down and away, but above all else, it's a first pitch, 73-mile-an-hour curveball that not many people are expecting. But Logan O'Hoppe's expecting it, and he crushes it. 98.5 exit velo, 393 feet to deep center field, and just like that, a 1-0 deficit is erased. Beautiful piece of hitting. First pitch, we know O'Hoppe likes the first pitch. We know he does. And he takes advantage here. He takes advantage later in the game. We'll talk about it. But after this, I'm already thinking, typical game, O'Hoppe, he's a stud. He came into this one a stud. He's, of course, leaving this one a stud. A great piece of hitting. Waste no time. And there's not many guys in the lineup that I want to see swing first pitch every time. We see guys like Joe Adell and Mickey Moniak fall behind 0-2 in every count. Certain guys, of course, we want to see more pitches. We know that's a big MO this year is have good at-bats. Small ball is not just bunting and having creative base running. It's also having great at-bats, making a pitcher throw strikes. One of the few guys that I'm not worried about that at all with is Logan O'Hoppe, because his success on first pitches, we see it time in and time out. He can take advantage of a pitch over the plate on the first pitch, and he did it again. Obviously, he did it in the second with the home run. He does it again. Once again, they were down 1-0 the first time, down 4-3 in the bottom of the fourth, and he hits another first pitch home run off of Scherzer. Scherzer is about as, legendary, maybe that's an overstatement, but in terms of veteran pitchers, he's about as experienced and as accomplished as it gets, right? And maybe he doesn't throw 99, 98, 97, 96 like he used to. Maybe he, has only played, I think this is his fourth outing of the year. Obviously, he started the game or the season on the IL. But above all else, something that you never lose. You lose your arm, you lose your control, whatever. Something you never lose as a pitcher, despite how old you are, is your brain, is your pitch sequencing, is your strategy. And so Scherzer gets beat in the second on a first pitch curveball. So he changes it up. He says, I'm going to throw a first pitch fastball to O'Hoppe. But boy, that's a mistake. That's even more of a mistake than a first pitch curveball, because O'Hoppe is even more on this one. 105.8 exit velo, 402 feet to center field. Once again, to center field, about as perfectly on it as you can be. He crushes it again. And both times, Angels down one, solo shot from O'Hoppe, and just like that, tie game. That's leadership. That's leadership. Not once, but twice. Coming up with a one-run deficit, thinking in your head, I need to be the guy. I need to swing first pitch and try to tie this game. And both times he did. But he was not done. He was not done against Max Scherzer in the bottom of the seventh. Scherzer's still on the mound, because we know how starting pitchers do. They get deep into games against our Angels. And again, O'Hoppe, take one guess what happened. First pitch, and what's the pitch this time? A slider. So like I said, Scherzer, as experienced as they come, he goes, okay, the curveball didn't work, the fastball didn't work, I'm going to throw a first pitch slider. But once again, O'Hoppe is absolutely all over it. 105.4 exit velo, line drive into left field, base hit to start the seventh. He was phenomenal. 3 hits, 2 home runs, all 3 hits on first pitches, all 3 hits coming with the Angels down 1 run. So shout out to him, right? Like, he's been phenomenal. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Excuse me. This one came with the game tied. My bad. But the first 2 times ties up the game with a home run. This time comes up with the game tied and has a leadoff single. That's leadership. That's clutch gene. That's everything from O'Hoppe. And I say he gets no help on my thumbnail. And sure, I'm exaggerating a little bit. Sure, the Angels did score outside of O'Hoppe. There was a Rendon RBI. There was a great performance, a Rendon run. There was a great performance from Nolan Shanuel, 2 for 4 with a run and an RBI. But anytime a guy has not 1, but 2 home runs, and there's only 2 runs outside of him, that's not enough help. That's not enough help. And for it to come in a loss, I feel bad for O'Hoppe. But hey, if he's going to be the leader of this team for a while, unfortunately, at least in the near future, he's going to have to get used to being the hero in games that might not end up in wins. So that's just being an Angel fan in 2024 and maybe into the future. But a couple more things on O'Hoppe before we take our first break. Number 1, 2 home runs, 2 solo shots. Why? Because he's hitting too low in the lineup. At this point, there's no reason Logan O'Hoppe should be hitting 6th. He's got the best OPS on the team by far. Only Taylor Ward is in the 700s, and Zach Neto just over at 705. Neto, 705 OPS, Taylor Ward, 738. The only other guy above them is O'Hoppe, and he's all the way at 825 now. Best batting average on the team with Rengifo out, of course, and it's not really close. Keston Hiura's barely been up. He's 267. Rendon's barely been up. He's 268. Other than that, the guys that actually play, Shanuel, even after another 2 for 4, he's just 240. Taylor Ward, even though he's only a hitter, gives you nothing in the field and is a veteran, 238. Guillerme, 235. Brandon Drury, the guy hitting before O'Hoppe, 176. And in this one, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. So there's no one ever on base for O'Hoppe because Brandon Drury can't hit anything, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. That's why it's 2 solo shots. Keston Hiura 0 for 3 ahead of Drury. Taylor Ward 1 for 4 with 2 strikeouts ahead of Keston Hiura. So the guys sitting before O'Hoppe are not getting on base. So the home runs are solo shots. And number two, that one time he gets a single, who's hitting after him? Mickey 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts every game, Moniak. So it's time. Ron Washington, the reason you're playing Joe Adell, despite him hitting 181, despite him having another 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, the reason you're hitting him, the reason you're hitting Moniak 0 for 2 with 2 or 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts, hitting 193. We know the reason you're hitting him and playing him every day. It's because this team stinks. This team is not playing for anything. Might as well have the young guys get more plate appearances, get more experience. Angels franchise can see what they have in these guys. We get it. We get it. Some people will tell you it's other stuff. It's not. It's not, strategy. It's not analytics. It's not any of that. No, the reason Adell and Moniak are hitting every day is because they are young. We're trying to see what we have in them. We get it. Most people get it. That's the reason. Okay? And if that's the case, if you're trying to see what you have with your young guys, one guy who is A, young and the future for sure, and two, also one of your best, if not your best hitter right now, is Logan O'Hoppe. There's no reason he's hitting 6th. There should be no reason. Right? So I say the Adell and Moniak stuff because some people think it's for other. No, it's because they're trying to see what they have in these young guys. And if after this year they hit 180 for a whole year, despite playing every day, then they're toast and they're gone. If the Angels were playing for something, they would not be playing Joe Adell and Mickey Moniak. I promise you that. I promise you that. And that's why, I was a little nervous during the winning streak, but for the most part, even during the winning streak, I'm pretty sure this team is not going to buy at the deadline, as dumb as they are, because there's no way a team is simultaneously considering buying at the deadline and simultaneously playing Joe Adell and Mickey Moniak every night. So it's always about the future with this season. It's always been that. And a winning streak maybe clouded some people's minds, but now 17 games under 500, we know for a fact it's sell at the deadline and plan for the future. And so you might as well have O'Hoppe, who could be the cleanup hitter for the next 10 years. You might as well play him cleanup right now. If Nolan Schanuel is hitting leadoff or second, despite hitting 240, the reason I'm not mad at it is because he is for the future as well. And he is a guy that you might want hitting second in the lineup for a while. So you're hitting him second. You're sometimes hitting him leadoff. It's not to win right now. It's because you want to be the leadoff or second hitter in the future. And so there's no way that Logan O'Hoppe, A, if you were trying to win right now, let's be honest, would still be the 3 or 4 hitter on this team. But B, if your primary objective is to plan for the future, there's no way he should not be hitting cleanup right now. Right now. So whatever you want to do, Rendon, I guess he's getting a hit every night so far since he's come back. Schanuel at second, that's fine. Taylor Ward at third until hopefully you get rid of him at the deadline. And then O'Hoppe should be right there at 4th. He should be right there at 4th. And so if it's Keston Hiura after him, a guy who no one's going to fear to have a home run, but at least you might fear to actually get a base hit, because Moniak, you don't fear anything. And the guy above him, Brandon Drury, the guy above O'Hoppe today, he's been terrible. So you might as well hit O'Hoppe 4th. That's going to be his spot in the lineup probably for the next 10 years. And it's also, if you claim you're still trying to win right now, it's also the best strategy to win right now. So it's a no-brainer no matter what you claim you're trying to do in 2024, Los Angeles Angels. So what turned into praising O'Hoppe turned into a little bit of a rant, because there's no way he shouldn't be hitting higher in the lineup at this point. He's the best hitter on the team right now, and he's going to be the best hitter for a while. So that was a long spiel there. Angels win in here says O'Hoppe better get used to homering in an Angel loss. Exactly. And he also says Joe Adell is this generation's Brandon Wood. Oh, man. He is awful, is what he is. And he comes up not once, but twice and does no damage. How do you get called on strikes to end the game, by the way? That's disgraceful. Anthony Jimenez says the O'Hoppe era has begun. Absolutely. Absolutely. We've been saying he is the future, but right now he's the present and the future because he's the best player on this team right now. So with all that being said, we'll take our first break here on the Locked On Angels Postcast, and when we come back, we'll actually get into the rest of the team. We'll talk about the pitching. We'll talk about what else happened, because we did have a Schanuel solid game. We did have a Rendon. Didn't have much else. Neto was great, actually. I didn't mention 2 for 4. And we'll talk about that at the end when I give you my preview of what you should look for in Angels games from now on, since certainly the outcome is a loss at least 50% of the time, more like 65% of the time. So knowing the Angels are probably going to lose If you're watching this team still, what should you look for every single night? We'll talk about that as well after our first break here on the Locked On Angels Postcast. Now, once again, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. You do. I do. Everybody should. There's nothing better than sports. And I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, the playoffs being over in the NBA and the NHL, the Euros are now down to technically 3 teams. Shout out to Spain. Pretty impressive performance, beating my favorite to win it all once again in France. So shout out to Spain. But the Euros are winding down. Copa America's winding down. I don't even know who won the Argentina-Canada game tonight. But everything's winding down, and we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers, not just new customers, all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Back here live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. This is the Locked On Angels Postcast. I am Gavin Carlson, and the Angels, just take a guess what I'm about to say next, are defeated again. 5-4 this time. You didn't lose by 5 runs. Yippee-yi-oo. But you still lose 5-4, despite Max Scherzer getting rocked, not once, but twice for solo shots on the first pitch by O'Hoppe. He also had another first pitch base hit, 3 hits for O'Hoppe, 2 home runs, and it's in a loss. A lot of people in the comments, including Anthony Jimenez, already saying the O'Hoppe era has begun. Absolutely. He is everything you want in a superstar, in a face of a franchise. Hits well. Power. Contact. For a catcher, pretty athletic, but also being a catcher, mentally amazing. A leader, physically and emotionally. And helping the bullpen, helping the starters. A lot of different pitchers. It's not easy for a catcher to have to deal with not just the regular rotation, but the rotation's had like 8 or 9 starters this year. The bullpen's been all over the place. O'Hoppe has been the ultimate professional, the ultimate leader through all of it. It is the O'Hoppe era, and that's even with Mike Trout on the roster right now. The reason the Angels lost this game, in addition to not giving enough help for O'Hoppe, was because of not great, but not terrible pitching. Come on, let's be honest. 5 runs is not terrible. The Angels' magic number is 5 runs scored. And once again, they fall just below it. 4 runs again, just like yesterday. When the Angels win 5 runs, they were saying it, back when the Angels had that stretch, I think it was the longest stretch in the history or since like the 90s or something of scoring less than 5 runs. I think it was like 15 games in a row that the Angels scored less than 5 runs. And that was back a month or 2 ago when the Angels weren't 17 games out of 500. But that was the magic number all the way back then of the Angels can't get over 5 runs. And also when the Angels don't score 5 runs, or when they do, they win most of the time. Over 500 record when they score 5 runs. Not 8, not 9 runs, which is what you would think with the rotation and bullpen we have. No, you score 5 runs, you win most of the time. But once again, it's 4, and it's a loss. And why? Outing from Roansy Contreras, and by let's be honest, it wasn't great. It started okay. Not really, though. You gave up a run in the first inning. It started okay because you get the first 2 guys out, but then you give up a solo shot to Josh Smith, one of these random guys for the Rangers, and I say random, but like random as in not the guy you'd expect to be hitting third for the Rangers and doing well, but he's been great. He's been great. It's his 8th home run of the year, and it's just a huge mistake from Contreras. You go ahead 0-2, and then you hang a changeup, bam, just like that. A great start to the outing, 2 outs, and 0-2 on the third hitter is suddenly 1-0 in the first inning, and that's Contreras. He has decent stuff. The control's not great, but his mistakes are huge mistakes. We saw it there, and we saw it later in this game as well. In the third, he just had some unlucky stuff, let's be honest. A very high fastball to start the top of the third that Kisner somehow hits a hard grounder on. It's like way above the zone, and he hits a 104 exit velo grounder. Then another pitch, kind of hangs a slider to Derek Hill on a 2-2 pitch, back-to-back singles, and then Semien with another pitch, a down and in changeup. You probably want to be more down on 1 and 2. Too many times, 2 strikes, having a strikeout pitch. Nope, it's down, but not down enough. And Semien rips this one down the line, ground rule double. It scores Kisner, Hill gets to third. Second and third, you walk Corey Seager intentionally. I think that's the right decision. You load the bases, but once again, guess who? Josh Smith, who would be the player of the game if not for O'Hoppe, but Josh Smith, once again, comes through with another RBI, a base hit that scores Derek Hill, Semien to third, Corey Seager to second, Smith to first, bases loaded, and that's when Hunter Strickland comes in. Think it's the right time. Obviously some people are going to say, kept him in too long, he gave up another run. No. At that point, it makes sense. You load the bases, you give him one more chance. He does not come through. Strickland comes in, forces a sac fly with the bases loaded. Not terrible, but not great either. But then he gets a double play on Adolis Garcia to get out of it, and it's 4-1. 4-1, you still have a chance if you're the Angels. That's kind of that magic number 4. And surely, magic number, the Angels come all the way back. Anthony Rendon double, and then a Nolan Schanuel double. He was great, 2 for 4 with 2 doubles. That scored Rendon. It's 4-2. Then Taylor Ward actually does something right. Rarely, he scores Schanuel. An error lets Taylor Ward advance, but then Taylor Ward is thrown out at third because not only is he a clown in the field, but he's also kind of a clown on the bases multiple times. And so just like that, the rally is killed. And maybe it could be 4-4 if you don't make a base running error, but he does. It's 4-3. It stays that way. We already talked about the O'Hoppe home run to make it 4-4. And then the reason the Angels lose this one is because Luis Garcia, a guy who has been pretty decent, pretty shaky at times, both ways, has an opportunity to increase that trade value with every outing. But this time, he does not come through in the 8th inning on a okay pitch. No, bad pitch to Adolis Garcia. Hangs a slider on 1-2. Once again, another 2-strike opportunity, and he does not come through. Garcia doesn't, the same way Contreras didn't with 2 strikes, had a couple mistakes, and he absolutely hangs a sinker. I said slider. A sinker, not hangs it. He just throws it right down the middle, and Garcia unloads. 405 feet, 105.4 exit velo, and that was the difference. So, despite the rest of the bullpen playing well, Ben Joyce, 2 innings, just 1 hit. Love to see it. We'll talk about it after the break. Strickland was good as well. 2 innings, just that 1 sac fly, which is obviously not a run against him. He had 2 strikeouts, just 1 walk. Matt Moore was good. Just 1 hit, 2 strikeouts in an inning and a third. But Contreras throws a couple bad pitches. Garcia really just throws 1 bad pitch. That 1 hit is a run on the solo shot. And just like that, it's a 5-4 loss for the Angels. So overall, one of those games where a decent amount of positives. If you don't look at the scoreboard and I'm not saying don't care about the result. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if before the game someone told you O'Hoppe is going to have 2 home runs, Rendon's going to have a hit, Schanuel's going to have 2 doubles, Nettle's going to have 2 hits, the Angels are going to have 3 relievers come in and not give up a run. You're going to have, Garcia give up 1 home run, Contreras give up 4 runs. You probably think the Angels maybe win the game, but they don't. They fall just short. It seems like everything going wrong for the Angels right now. But after the break, I'm going to tell you, I kind of hinted at it, some positive things, even in a loss. And I'm not being a homer, okay? I'm not being a homer that says, woohoo, I don't care about the loss. No. Even when you're 17 games under 500, I care about the loss. Number one will always, whenever you watch your team play, the number one priority will always be to win the game. But there's other things you want to see, especially from a team you know is going to lose most of the time. And I'll tell you some of the things you can look out for. It's also a preview for what might be a future segment. And I say might be, it will be a future segment. So we'll get to that after our last break here. Shout out to everybody here on the Locked On Angels Postcast. Today's show is brought to you by the wonderful and my favorite people at PrizePicks. If you somehow don't know by now, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, over 5 million active members, including myself. And why? Why? Because it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, because unlike other apps, you don't have to compete against other people. It's not, I'm going to pick these guys to do well and hopefully the other guys do worse, or the other human beings do worse in picking the other baseball players, who are human beings, by the way. I worded that poorly, but you know what I mean. You're not rooting for your lineup to do better than someone else's or anything like that. No, you're just rooting for your picks of stat projections, 2 to 6 player stat projections of more or less. You're just hoping that your picks are correct. And not only that, not only is it simple, not only is it easy, but PrizePicks also has you with all sorts of promotions, like lowering select player stat projections on Tuesdays to help your lineup hit, or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. That's why PrizePicks is great. That's why I use it. That's why you should as well. So please download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And today's show is also brought to you by Tax Network USA. You've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it twice, you've heard me say it a lot of times because it's that important. Locked On, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, the playoffs. It's year-round, but you know what else is year-round? By now, I hope you know, collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. I'm 22. You know, despite what some of you older people might think, I have a lot to worry about. I've got multiple jobs. I have rents where I'm paying it year by year. I'm not in a house that I own or anything like that. There's income coming in. There's a lot of, things I'm paying for simultaneously. I need help with my finances. Tax Network USA has me, and they should have you as well. Because with over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or you finally hit that part of the season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon and be sure to mention the Locked On Angels Postcast at checkout, and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. Back here on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel, this is the Locked On Angels Postcast. I am Gavin Carlson, and the Angels are defeated once again. This time much closer, but a 5-4 defeat to the Texas Rangers, who are still 4 games out of 500, who are still third in the AL West, who are still, there's rumblings of them being sellers at the deadline. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're trading anybody. They need DeGrom to get healthy. They need Scherzer to get into form, and they can certainly make a run at least the wild card, maybe even the division in a weak division. So I'm just saying that. But the Rangers are talking about buying or selling or what they should do. With the Angels, it's clear. We're sellers at the deadline. We're no good. We know that. So even though this team is losing right now, and even though they're likely to lose in the future, especially when they trade some of these veterans, what should you, the Angel fan that still wants to watch every game like me, what should you do when you watch this team? Tomorrow, hopefully, I'm working on a graphic. I'm going to have a segment. Maybe it's at the end of every show. Maybe it's at the middle. Maybe it's at the beginning, where I'm going to have a list of sort of goals or a guideline of what you should be rooting for. And I'm not telling you what to do, but at least in my opinion, what you should be doing when you watch this team, what you should be rooting for. Number one, of course, no matter the record, no matter anything, is always going to be win. I don't care if you're 17 games under 500. I don't care if you're undefeated. As a fan, you always want to see your team win above all else, all right? So number one is win. Even if it means the guys you don't want to do well, even if it means the guys you want to do well, don't do well. I still, just for my sanity, for my enjoyment, and for your guys' sanity and enjoyment as well, number one should be win. This is not the NFL where the first pick is that much more valuable than the third pick or anything like that, okay? We're not tanking. It's not the NBA. There's no Victor Wembanyama in the draft or anything. So win is one. Number two, I've debated this. Certainly after the deadline, it's clear, but you can make an argument that the trade value is a higher priority right now. But still, number two, in my opinion, is the core, young guys doing well. That is the, other than the outcome, win or loss, the most important thing. And by the young core, you probably know who I'm talking about. Logan O'Hoppe, of course. Zach Neto, of course. Nolan Schanuel, of course. I think you could put Ben Joyce in that category. I think certainly you can put Jose Soriano in that category. Those are the 5 for sure, in my opinion. Now, the debatable ones are, of course, Joe Adell, Mickey Moniak. Not that young at this point. Certainly haven't given you anything to believe they're part of the future. But they're still guys that, they're not random veterans that if they do well, it doesn't mean anything because in 2 years they're going to be out of the league. And it's not veterans that if they do well, a contender is going to be racing after them to trade for them, right? So Adell and if 2A on this list of priorities is those 5, one more time, O'Hoppe, Neto, Schanuel, Ben Joyce, Soriano, if that's 2A of what you want to root for other than the win-loss, then 2B is maybe Adele and Moniak actually coming through, especially if they're in the lineup every night. Of course, you're going to want them to do well. Number 3, and arguably number 2, arguably above that right now, is you want the clear trade candidates to do well. So if Estevez pitches, you want him to do well because he's a prime trade candidate. If Tyler Anderson pitches, you certainly want him to do well. A prime trade candidate. But other guys, Taylor Ward, love him or hate him, if he plays decently well, if he's hitting 250, if the OPS gets over 800, a team, we're hearing Reds, if you watch the Locked On Daily podcast, Angels Daily podcast, we're hearing Reds, we're hearing Braves, we're hearing a couple teams talking about acquiring Brandon Drury, a couple competitors, maybe even the Phillies, who knows? So you certainly want to root for a Taylor Ward to do well. You want to root for an Estevez, like I said, still a Strickland, a Luis Garcia, like we said, a Tyler Anderson, these veterans that if they play well enough, a team will consider trading for them. That is the next priority and what you want to see. Because let's be honest, number 1 of winning isn't going to happen very often. And even if number 2 doesn't happen like it did tonight, where tonight was kind of a dream outing for obviously O'Hoppe, but Shanuel showed you a lot, Neto showed you a lot, shocker, Adele and Moniak showed you nothing, but those core 3 showed you what you needed, and even Ben Joyce was good. So 4 out of the 5 young guys that, obviously Soriano didn't play, so the 4 young guys, the 4 core young guys that played, they all performed. So this would be a number 2 is a absolutely A+ outcome. Number 3 is the trade candidate guys. Taylor Ward was okay, probably not great. Probably value goes down on a 1-for-4 with 2 strikeout game, right? Luis Garcia's trade value goes down. We didn't see Estevez. A Strickland trade value maybe goes up. So that's what I mean. These are the things you have to look for. And I know this is not me acting like I'm some Albert Einstein of watching the Angels. I know most of you guys understand the priority is 1, winning, 2, the young guys coming through, 3, the trade value guys having their value increase. But I just wanted to make it a clear guideline because it's something I'm going to start doing after every game. Trying to be creative. This team isn't winning very often. So there's certain things I want to root for, certain things you guys should be rooting for, and certain things I will talk about on every show. It'll be more clear in future shows. I'll have a checklist, a graphic right next to me where we will give it a check mark if it was accomplished or an X if it was not accomplished, right? So that's 2 and 3. Number 4 is just, I guess, the every other guys like the Pilars, the Calhouns, even the Brandon Drurys at this point playing well, just so if we get a wild hair and want to trade him, maybe, but let's be honest, it's not likely happening. And then number 5 is just no foolishness. And that might be moved up to 4, maybe even 3. The foolishness really just annoys me as a fan. It probably annoys you as well. Taylor Ward getting thrown out. Davis Daniel tripping on the mound yesterday. Errors, stuff like that. Don't want to see that. So you'll see a more clear guideline in future podcasts, maybe even tomorrow. I'm working on the graphic. It's not going to look amazing, but I'm using my best graphic design skills to give you something appealing to look at if you watch. And of course, if you listen, I will certainly spell it out for you. So that's my little opinion, at least, of what to watch for, what to root for with these Angels, because certainly simply rooting for this team to win or lose is going to be a negative result most of the time, as we're seeing. So at least have some other stuff to root for. And maybe, hey, plug here to my sponsors, run a PrizePicks lineup, have FanDuel, maybe those hit, maybe those make your night. But in all seriousness, the guideline, Gavin's guide, whatever my goals, whatever we call it, hopefully we can outline them for you more clearly in the future, and we'll give you something to root for so you know what to do when you're watching this game and you're like, we're down 6-4, we're probably going to lose, but what should I be hoping for above all else? I got you. And so it'll make more sense in future shows. But with all that being said, shout out to everybody in here. Anthony Jimenez says, it's time for the Angels to build around the young key core. The future is now. Absolutely, that's what I mean. The young key core guys, luckily they all played well tonight, and that's what makes a 5-4 loss obviously disappointing, but more encouraging when you see the guys that need to come through for the future come through. Fud Alex says, I just look at the score live now instead of watching the games. Very valid, very valid. I don't blame you. And so that's why I'm here, of course, on the podcast every single day to actually tell you what happened as someone who watched the game. But I certainly don't blame you for only watching the box score. And if you're just watching the box score, you know what to root for. You hope to see good stats next to Shanuel, Neto, O'Hoppe, those guys. And you hope to see good stats next to Taylor Ward and guys that can be traded. You understand it. We all understand it. So shout out to, and finally, Angels Win says, hopefully a team like the Braves do something dumb and give the Angels a prospect for Taylor Ward. Exactly. That's what we're rooting for. So shout out to everybody in here. A lot of people in here. Fudd Alex, Anthony Jimenez, Anaheim Angel, Angels win. Daniel Barry, Jeff, all of you. Appreciate it. I don't appreciate the Angels for losing, but I certainly appreciate Logan O'Hoppe and some of the other young guys for at least giving me some hope for the future. But with all that being said, another relatively long postcast. I'm Gavin Carlson. I'll let you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I'll hopefully see you back here tomorrow. Hopefully, not after an Angels loss. Please, for the love of God, do not lose 3 in a row to the Texas Rangers. But that's all. I'm Gavin. The Angels lose 5-4. Logan O'Hoppe is a superstar in the making, and have a great rest of your night. So long, everybody.